Same time, same place, same link for the STEM Expo next week. So for today, we'll give you an overview again of how the STEM Expo works. We do these presentations to get you thinking, and you get to learn from a real live scientist from Utah today. What to expect when you go to the in-person STEM Expo that is at Eastview Middle School on a Saturday, the 29th. We don't have the times for sure. It kind of depends on how many students sign up, but it's generally in the morning, maybe 9 to noon or something like that. But you'll get a trifold board, and you bring your board and you set up your presentation, and we're going to have peer reviewers walking around. They're not actually judges because we don't make our STEM Expo a contest, but we have people that know and are interested in science that are going to walk around, and they're going to read your board, and they're going to ask you questions that you'll know the answers to because you did the investigation. So that's all that's involved in the actual in-person event. It's on Saturday the 29th, and you show us your cool stuff and you get a t-shirt. So that registration form is going to start via email. You'll get an email so that you can click on the Google form and get signed up. There is also going to be a pre-recorded option. There's not going to be a Zoom option this year. We're not having a virtual STEM Expo, but you could record yourself doing your presentation like you would be doing if you were standing at your board, and you can then submit it before April 29th. And we will do the same. We'll listen, we'll ask questions, we'll give you some feedback. So you'll get the same thing. You'll just be able to pre-record it. So that'll work well if somebody can't actually physically be there on April 29th. So students will present. Oops, sorry. Did I miss something on the bottom? No, you'll get feedback. Okay. So we always need volunteers for the STEM Expo. So any adults in the room, if you would like to be our peer review panel members, we would love to have you volunteer. It is actually fantastic fun to walk around and see our shining stars of tomorrow talk about their science experiments and investigations. We'll also need just somebody for the crowd control, checking in, running around, running errands, bring this here and that there. And any kind of community partners, if you have any ideas, if you'd like to spread the word, if you can send us some phenomenon that might be good triggers to start a STEM Expo project, you can send those to Debbie McMullen at U46.org. And thinking through your project, what does it mean? What is a phenomenon or investigation or inquiry project? An inquiry project is something you have a question about. And I had another question about the leaves today when I was walking out from work, and I noticed almost all the leaves are off of the trees. Not all, but almost. And I wonder, does it take the same amount of time for the buds to grow and the leaves to get full and mature as it does for it to turn yellow or red or orange and then dry up and crinkle a little bit and then fall to the ground? Or is one of those processes faster than the other? Or are they connected? If they come in fast, do they fall off fast? And because some trees lose their leaves faster than others. So that phenomenon that I just described that made me wonder as I walked outside yesterday is worthy to be a STEM Expo project. So an inquiry is a good question, a phenomenon, something amazing that you see. We do have a slide deck. I'm sorry, a STEM Expo template. We call it the thinking guide. We used it all the time for, you know what, and I don't have it up right now.
Yeah, that's okay. Yes, you can click on it, you guys, and kind of look through it. So if you click on this link, and this link, these are all going to help you guys with more information. And we will, if we have time at the end, we'll come back to this slide, was my thought, because usually you guys have tons of questions because we're all here for the same thing for the
Yeah.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But
So
we'll come back and answer these questions and help you guys, or you can email me. It's in the chat. I can put it in the chat again. You can email me and our team can help support you. All right.
this page is terrific help. Click on any of those things to get that help. And I am very happy to introduce Mrs. Carrie Levitt Bussian. She is a paleontology collections manager at the Natural History Museum of Utah. And she was a student of mine at Eastview Middle School just a few years ago. And she was a student just like you that went through U46 schools. And she always loved the stars, but she also loved dinosaurs and bones. So I am perfectly okay that dinosaurs and bones went out, and she went to college and got a degree in paleontology. And now she works at one of the best museums in the country, and she gets to play with dinosaur bones. So I would like to hand it over to Carrie. Hopefully we have her in and ready to go.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to come back to my roots of U46. Like Mrs. Hernandez says, I am originally from Bartlett. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, and I went to Centennial, and then I went to Eastview Middle School, and then I went to Bartlett High School. And I owe a lot of my success to wonderful mentors and teachers like Mrs. Hernandez and Mrs. Valencia, who guided me in how awesome science is and that you could actually study dinosaur bones and get paid for it. And that is very exciting. I'm going to show you a PowerPoint presentation real quick, and then I'm going to show you about this amazing room that I'm in and a lot of dinosaur bones that are behind me and around me. And then I'd love to answer your questions. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen and we'll see if that works. All right, we are hoping it works.
Yay, we can see it.
Huzzah, wonderful. Okay, now I can't see my face. I can just see Mrs. Hernandez's face, but it's a good face, so we'll work with it. Cool. All right. So, like I said, I'm the paleontology collections manager. I am a paleontologist, and so I study dinosaur bones. A paleontologist is someone who studies animals of the past, and I specifically study dinosaur bones. And I have three aspects of my job, and I will show you what those are. Great. So what is a paleontologist? Like I said, it's somebody who studies some ancient creatures of in the ancient past. And so I'm the collections manager. So I am like the librarian, but for fossils, which I think is a very cool job. I'm going to attempt to show you this awesome room that I'm in right now without all of the cords coming apart. Let's see. Again, I want to be able to see myself. There you go. Okay. All right, so I am in paleontology collections here in Utah, and this is an amazing room that I'm in charge of with just rows and rows and stacks of dinosaur bones. And I'm in charge of all of the dinosaur bones that come into this room, all of the dinosaur bones that leave this room, and everything in between. So what is to help me organize it is I actually give numbers. I assign numbers to dinosaur bones in order to be able to track them. And I put dinosaur bones out on exhibit in my own museum here. We have dinosaur bones that go out on exhibit in other museums all around the world. And then I also, if people want to research the dinosaur bones in this room, I kind of facilitate their research here. And then I also mail bones from to people all over the world. So if you can imagine me packing up a dinosaur bone very carefully and FedExing it to China, I do that all the time. And I always use FedEx though, always the appropriate shipping people. And then also I get to go out in the field, and I work with people who go out in the field. And so we always have an influx of dinosaur bones coming into the museum. And so I'm in charge of all of those as well. So like I just showed you, this is my paleontology collection space. So it's just rows and rows and stacks of dinosaur bones. And we have a lot of fun in paleo collections. So, but one of my favorite parts of being a paleontologist is actually field work, is actually going out in the field and digging dinosaur bones. And this is a picture of me on the climb. I had to learn how to rock climb in order to get to this one site. And we are excavating a sauropod, which is the largest dinosaurs of all time. They're the ones with the long necks and the long tails, like you might have heard of the term Brachiosaurus or Apatosaurus. Those are some of the sauropods. And so I'm actually going up the hill to dig up an animal called Dystrophius, which is another one of those sauropod dinosaurs from the Jurassic, about 150 million years old. And so it's really fun when you get to learn new techniques like rock climbing in order to dig up the bones. When we are looking for dinosaur bones, we're doing what we're calling prospecting. And what I think of when I think of the term prospecting is I think of like a bearded man with a hat panning for gold. Prospecting just means looking for something. And so we're constantly walking around in areas where we know the appropriate aged rocks are, either the Triassic, Jurassic, or the Cretaceous, the 3 different time periods the dinosaurs lived. And we're just walking around looking at the ground. And we're looking for something that catches our eye, something that's different. And so we're looking for 3 different things. We are looking for color, color differences. So you can see here, these are all 4 different jaws of different animals throughout time. And you can see that the color is very different, it's very unique. And so we're looking for the different color of the bones. And the color of the bones has to do with the minerals that are in the sediment at the time it became fossilized. And so, for example, the second to the bottom one, that black one, is a lower jaw of a meat-eating dinosaur called Ceratosaurus. And you can see the pointy teeth. You can usually tell what an animal eats by the shape of their teeth. If it's sharp and serrated, it probably ate meat. And if it was blunt, it probably chewed up plants. And so what I'm pointing out the Ceratosaurus here is it's black, it's jet black, and all the bones from this one site are jet black. And that has to do with the chemicals of the sediment at the time they became fossilized. So the fact that there's lots of manganese, which is both a element on the periodic table and also a mineral and metal, that was very heavy and very dense in the sediment at the time it became fossilized. And so we're looking for color differences, the color difference of the bone versus the rock, but also the color differences of the different bones relative to each other. I like to show this one just because it shows so many different animals. The lowest one on the bottom is a lower jaw of a hadrosaur or duck-billed dinosaur. And they were like the cows of the Cretaceous. And you can see that they have layers and layers of these diamond-shaped teeth that are stacked on top of each other. And then a very flat horizontal, what we call dental battery. So they actually chewed their plants like scissors. And you can see that with a very blunt, a very flat serrated dental battery there. And then Ceratosaurus, and then we have an ancient rhinoceros there with that kind of pinkish or brownish maroon color. And then the one at the top is actually a modern cow bone, but you can see the different colors there. So next one, we're looking for texture. And so I have a bone right here. It's actually also a cow bone. But what's really cool about bone, and something that I learned when I did most of my education in geology, so learning about the rocks that the dinosaurs were preserved in, as opposed to dinosaurs as animals, biology. But you have to know both. You have to know biology and geology in order to be a good paleontologist. But one thing I learned is that, you have your bones. They actually have blood vessels running both the length of the bone on the outside of the bone, but also on the inside of the bone, in the actual bone tissue. And so this is a little piece of a cow bone, and you can see all those holes in there. This is a cross section, so it took the bone and we cut it in half, and you can see all the thing that looks like a sponge. All of that is what the inside of your bones look like. And all of those holes are where the blood vessels came from. And you can also see that on this one. This is the head of the femur. And you can see in there, you can see a whole bunch of holes in there. And that was something I learned. I didn't know that blood vessels actually ran inside your bone. So I thought that was pretty neat. But we're looking for that kind of spongy texture when we're looking for bones, because it's very unique to bones. Rocks don't have that texture. And so when you look at this picture, you can see both the color differences. The bone itself is that maroonish brown color. And then if you looked very carefully, you could see that spongy porous structure. And then compared with the rock that it's in, the gray rock that it's in, and you can see individual sand grains, and you can actually see the scratch marks of the tools we use to excavate those bones out. Okay, so we're looking for color differences, we're looking for texture differences, and then dinosaur bone sticks to your tongue if you lick it. As you can see, I have a dinosaur bone attached to my tongue. And it's very funny, it has to do with that porosity that I was talking about, that spongy texture, it actually sticks to my tongue. And we actually do it. People are just like, you know what, you just say you lick a bunch of rocks, I don't believe you. We actually do. We go out there and we're like, well, the color is different, the texture is different, the shape is a bit weird, I'm gonna lick it and see if it sticks to my tongue. And I do, and if it sticks to my tongue, I'm like, yay, it's a fossil. And if it doesn't stick to my tongue, then I have a mouthful of mud and it's a rock, and that was a mistake. But I do it all the time. I was teaching a group of people how to look for dinosaur bones one time, and I had this gal come up to me and she said, Carrie, I licked it and it stuck to my tongue. What is it? And I said, that's deer poop. So I don't lick everything. I think that's a good rule of thumb, especially in the sciences, especially in chemistry, don't lick everything. But when it comes to dinosaur bones, it does stick to your tongue. So once we decide we found a fossil and we looked for the color difference, the texture difference, we licked it like a bunch of fools, we wanted to excavate it. We have to make sure that we have the appropriate tools. This is one of the quarries that we excavated. So this is a femur. So your femur is the largest bone in your body. It goes from your hip to your knee. And this is a femur of a duck-billed dinosaur. So they're the herbivorous dinosaurs that had a face like the bill of a duck. And you can see that in the upper left kind of corner horizontally. And then it's kind of hard to see again with that color gray on gray, but we also have a humerus, which is the upper arm bone that's in the foreground here. And in order to excavate that out, we need a bunch of different tools. So this is my toolkit. And I'm going to show you a couple of the really important tools that I have in my toolkit. Most important is my rock hammer. So if you wanted to do some geology yourself with your parents' permission and wearing goggles, you can go and use a hammer and see what the rocks look like. Because the rocks look different on the outside than it does on the inside. You can actually see crystalline structure on the inside. If you ever come across like a rock shop or a museum that sells geodes, I highly recommend you buy one, because that is one of the coolest things you can do. There are these perfectly cylindrical, so perfectly completely perfect spheres, rocks that have mineral crystals inside, and the only way you can see them is to smash them with a hammer. And I definitely think that's a very fun scientific thing to do. So anyway, my rock hammer, and I bring it out in the field because sometimes I have to excavate the bones out using the hammer, and then sometimes I want to see what the different crystalline structure of the rocks look like, and I use it to smash it off. Or if I'm falling down a cliff, it's a good thing to smash into the wall as I'm falling down, and it'll slow me down at very least. I also have chisels and larger hammers on the left-hand side, a bunch of brushes. I also have, very important, is my GPS unit and my walkie-talkie. The GPS unit that says Garmin that's how I mark the sites and say, I found X, Y, and Z at this site. And then I can radio to my friends on the walkie-talkie and say, hey, I found the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex ever. Come over here and see it, and then give them my coordinates, and then they come and see me. Both very important for bragging rights, but then also very important for safety, because we're in the middle of nowhere, and we can break our legs or have a rattlesnake bite you or something like that. And so we want to be able to communicate with our friends where we are, and that's why a walkie-talkie and a GPS are useful. You'll also see I have a dental picks, like when you go to the dentist and they clean your teeth. We are actually really good friends with our dentist, and we always ask for dental picks because they have dental picks that they can no longer use on humans, but are perfect for dinosaurs. And so we use them to, yes, clean the teeth of dinosaurs, but also to clean the bones, for the dirt from the bones. And very important, you'll see that I have a fork and spoon in my my field pack, because I like to eat leftovers in the field, and eating spaghetti with your hands gets very messy when you forget your fork. So that's a very important tool for me as well. Some of the larger tools we have here, we have a pickaxe, we have shovels, we have pry bars, which are those long blue things, which are really, really heavy metal bars that we use to flip dinosaur bones while they're in jackets over, or to move very large rocks out of the way. Then you can see we have whisks and brooms to help us clear out the debris when we're excavating, and then more hammers and chisels. There's me using a pickaxe, and then you can see that we've actually used a jackhammer to go all the way down that whole entire wall to get to the bone layer. So we use the really heavy industrial tools at the top, and then we use our more detail-oriented tools like dental picks at the bottom. Here's me using the concrete saw. So you can imagine sometimes the rocks are really, really hard and dense. And we use the same equipment that like construction workers use. And so this is me excavating an ankylosaur, one of those ones that have the armor everywhere. Even their eyelids had armor. Usually as a bony club, this one didn't. But in order to extricate it or get it out of the rocks, I had to use a concrete saw to get it out. So we use everything from huge concrete saws and jackhammers all the way down to teeny tiny little dental picks in paleontology. We also get to use helicopters, which is really, really cool. I love using helicopters. They're really expensive, but it's really fun working with the helicopter pilots because they're excited about the dinosaur bones and we're excited about the helicopters. And I was very excited. 2 weeks ago, I was actually on a helicopter trip, and I'm actually gonna try to show you a video of us airlifting this stuff out. What's neat is once we find a fossil and we've excavated it out and we want to bring it back to the museum, what we do is we make what we call a jacket, but you might call a cast, to protect the dinosaur bone, to transfer it from the field, from outside back to our museum, because we want to get it into our lab in a controlled environment. And so what we do is if you've ever broken a bone, or you know somebody who has broken a bone, you know that a doctor puts a cast on it to make sure that you don't move those bones so that they actually heal perfectly. And that's kind of what we're doing, because we want to protect these bones to get them back to the museum. And so we clean off the bone, and then we put a layer of wet paper towel on top of it. And then we cut a fabric called burlap. Potatoes used to come in it. And we actually mix plaster of Paris with water together. And then we dip that burlap in, and we make layers and layers of that on one side. And then it's an exothermic reaction. So it gives off heat, and it goes from a liquid to a solid. And once it solidifies, we flip the entire thing over. And what you end up with is a dinosaur bone encased in one of these casts. And you can see kind of behind me, there's a bunch of white things, and that's what they are, is they're protective cases in plaster, but they all have dinosaur bones in that, and we just want to protect them. And so when you see these pictures, you'll see in the helicopter nets, we have these jackets, and each one of those big white blobs has a dinosaur bone in it. So I'm going to attempt to show you different mediums, but I'm going to hopefully show you a really cool video, 2 very cool videos of us helicoptering out their dinosaur bones 2 weeks ago. So without messing everything up, hopefully you can see this. So this is the first one, and what's really neat is the helicopter pilot has to take off their doors, and then attach a guy wire, a tow line, and then we attach the helicopter nets with carabiners, and so you'll see this huge net being helicoptered out. All right, hopefully this works.
We're seeing the PowerPoint. I'm not sure that.
Oh, okay.
You have the whole, maybe you don't have whole screen shared.
Oh wait, I gotta just say which one I'm sharing. Thank you for pointing that out.
Glad I'm not the only one.
No,
I've done it
How
before.
about now? You see it? Okay, cool.
Yep, it's there.
Awesome. So that was one load, and that was a duck-billed dinosaur skull that we got out. And I'm gonna see if I can do another one here without everything crashing. There you go. Let's see. I don't know how to make it bigger, but we'll see. There you go. All right, so that was really fun to be part of that expedition. And it's always fun to work with helicopters. So sometimes I get to ride in the helicopter, which is, oh, I don't know if I'm sharing the right screen. Am I right? Do you see my PowerPoint? No, okay. Let's share the correct screen again. How about now?
Yep.
Sometimes I get to ride in the helicopter, which is really, really cool, and point out the sites that we're going to be excavating. And no, I can't advance my slide. There you go. But I wanted to talk about my least favorite part of my job, and without a doubt, it is emptying the field toilet. So you can imagine we go out in the field for 2-3 weeks at a time, and this is our toilet. If you can imagine putting this under a tree and going to the bathroom in this, at the end of every dig, I actually have to empty it out. So there are perks to being a paleontologist, but this is not one of them. All right, so I'm going to answer any questions, but I do also want to show you the really cool fossils that are behind me, just because we're in a really awesome room. All right. Can you still see me? I hope so. Okay. All right. So I'm going to attempt to unplug everything without messing everything up. And this is one of my favorite dinosaurs. This is called Cosmoceratops. And the media called it the horniest dinosaur ever because it has the most horns or most ornamentation of any dinosaur ever found. And so it's looking that way. So you can see there's a big beak, it's like a parrot beak right here. And then this jaw is in life position, which is very rare because usually that's one of the first thing that disarticulates or falls off is the jaw. And it actually still has teeth in it, which is incredible. And then it has, you can see a horn over its nose, a horn over each eye. This is its big eye hole. Paleo artist always shows eye holes as being eyeballs as being so tiny, but look how big their eye holes are. And I always wonder whether or not they just had big googly eyes, like a softball sized googly eye. And then you can see all of these horns on the back. They're totally bent over like a bad comb over. And it's really interesting and it's very ornamented. You can see it goes all the way down here. And it would have been covered, that's bone, that's made of real bone, but it would have been covered in keratin. So like what your fingernails are made out of, it would have gone over it too, which is interesting. And then another one of my favorite dinosaurs up here, this is called Diabloceratops. If you guys know Carrie, Diablo.
Hey, Carrie, sorry to interrupt. Can you share your whole screen?
I don't know.
It's just on the Zoom at the bottom, the green button says share screen. Are you able to do that?
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe. It's the wrong screen.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
No, it's a good point. I want you to be able to see the fossils really big.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
think
also
of-
think people can adjust their view. So
Yeah.
individuals,
Oh, okay.
yeah, if you play around with your view buttons, you might be able to get the screen bigger. I'm not sure exactly which one.
Yeah, I don't know how to make me bigger either.
That's on our end. My fault, Carrie.
Oh, no worries. So then we have another ceratopsian dinosaur. This is Diabloceratops. Diablo means devil ceratopsian. And it's named that way because of the horns. It's got two horns over, one over each eye, and it kind of looks like a devil. And again, you can see the big beak, so it's pointing that way. So we have a big parrot beak here. The teeth are still in knife position, which is awesome, because usually those things fall off. And then we have a hole here, and then another cool horn on the back. But what's neat in talking about how science is always changing and always up for discussion, you see these holes here. There's one hole here. That hole is supposed to be there, but that hole is not supposed to be there. And this is the only one of this species in the entire world. So that was kind of confusing, and it's missing the right side of its face. So we couldn't even compare it to the other side of its face. But what's weird is that's not supposed to be there. And so it either got bit in the face by a tyrannosaur or another large animal, or it had a bone disease that was eating away its face. All right, so I think I touched something, or somebody touched something.
Your screen got big, so that's good.
All right, well, that's what I wanted to show you. So I know that was a lot of me talking, but I would love to entertain any questions that anybody might have about my job, about fossils, about paleontology, anything.
would
I
you
don't
like
know
to read the,
were to just yell out the questions, or if someone were to moderate, or what do you think?
Peggy, would you like to read them? Because
Sure.
Maeve is not.
Sure. I see the Q&A questions. We have one that says, are geodes sparkly?
Yes, they are. That's really cool. So most of the time it's quartz inside, but you got to smash them in order to see it, which is really neat. And they have varying degrees of sparkliness. So yeah.
Have you ever been bit by a snake?
Ooh, good question. I have not. I have colleagues who have been. I've seen a dog get bit by a rattlesnake, but he was fine. It's always scary to be in the same places as rattlesnakes. I actually had a rattlesnake in my sleeping bag once, but that was because we weren't allowed to have tents on that expedition. But he was a very good rattlesnake, and he rattled and let me know he was there. And so I just let him get out of my sleeping bag, and then I slept in a chair the rest of the night. But snakes are really respectful, and if you just leave them alone, then they won't bother you. Same thing with like bees or wasps. You know, if you don't like swat at them too much, then they probably won't sting you. So we know they're there, and they were there first, so we just got to be respectful of the snakes.
So glad I wasn't near that sleeping bag. What is your favorite dinosaur from Kalinda?
Ooh. Oh, hi, Kalinda. My favorite dinosaur is Utahceratops. I love the ceratopsian dinosaurs, so for me that'll always be Sarah from Land Before Time. But I love the ceratopsian dinosaurs, and Utahceratops is only found in Utah so far. And what I did for my master's thesis was I actually cut open dinosaur bones and looked at them under a microscope. And I did that for Utahceratops and Cosmoceratops. And so actually I have one of the thin sections that I created of Utahceratops. So this is what a bone looks like, and I put it under a microscope to analyze it. And so I feel like I know Utahceratops personally, and that's why it's my favorite.
I like that name too, Utahceratops. Okay, the next question could be really, really, really long or really, really, really short. It's from Rian, who's 6 years old. What happened to the dinosaurs?
Ooh, good question. Well, there was a mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous. And so what happened is a meteor came from outer space and it smashed into the earth. And you can imagine something coming so fast and hitting the earth's surface makes this huge cloud of dust. and that blocked out the sun. And so it wasn't actually the impact that killed the dinosaurs. It wasn't like a rock hit every single dinosaur and knocked it out. It was that it exploded and it blocked out the sun for days and days and days. And you can imagine if the sun is blocked out, then the plants die. And then if the plants die, then the herbivores, the plant eaters who eat the plants, then they die. And then the carnivores who eat the herbivores who eat the plants, they die. And then it's just this horrible chain reaction. And so that's what happened. And there's some debate on whether or not dinosaurs were on the decline anyway, whether there was volcanic things happening in India, whether they were not being successful as a bunch of species of animals. That's still up for debate, but it is not up for debate that we actually found the crater. We found the hole where that impact happened. And we know that there was a huge meteor that hit the earth. And it's literally the single worst day in all of Earth's history, because all the other 5 major mass extinctions, they were slow to develop over thousands and millions of years. But in one day, this meteor came down and totally demolished the dinosaurs. It took a long time for them all to die, but and I'd like to do a plug for one of my friend's book, Riley Black. She wrote the book, The Last Days of the Dinosaurs, and it's really cool because it does like the day the meteor hit, and then a week after the meteor hit, and then 100 years and 1,000 years, and it's a really great book. So again, that's called The Last Days of the Dinosaurs. Good question.
Nice. Is that Last Days of the Dinosaurs good for, is there like a grade level? Is it like primary grades or middle school or high school?
It would be more advanced, so more like high school aged, I would think. But it is a very good read.
Yeah. All right. Anaya wants to know if you've ever found a T-Rex bone.
Ooh, good question. Kind of. So I have dug up tyrannosaurs, and so you got to think that there are a bunch of different tyrannosaurs that were part of the Tyrannosauridae family, and so it's a bigger family. So there's not just one species of tyrannosaur. The most famous one is Tyrannosaurus rex because it is the biggest and baddest and meanest and most popular. But I've dug up other tyrannosaurs called Lythronax and Teratophonius, and a new one that we're going to name. But I haven't dug a T-Rex, but really close and just as cool.
Nice. I didn't realize there were so many in that group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, AJ wants to know, what's the strangest dinosaur you've ever found or discovered?
Oh, that's a good question. Strange. Well, the strangest and coolest bone, like individual bone I've ever found, when we were talking about geodes earlier, is there's this in my collection. There's this Allosaurus bone. So Allosaurus is one of those bipedal, so walking on 2 legs, meat-eating dinosaurs, but lived 100 million years before T-Rex, but was really cool. So Allosaurus bone, it's a femur, so again, your upper leg bone, and it was broken in half, so we got to see the inside of it, and it was fossilized with amethyst. And so it's like a bonus fossil. So it's a fossil dinosaur bone, but with purple crystals inside of it. So that's very strange and weird. It doesn't happen all the time.
Amazing. Wow, that would be a bonus one to find. What do you eat when you're out in the field working?
Oh, good question. Well, we actually bring a whole kitchen setup. So we have a stove and we have a grill, and we bring our own water in huge 55-gallon barrels. And so we actually eat pretty good out there. So usually, we have eggs and bacon for breakfast, and then we have, sandwiches and crackers and stuff for lunch, and then like spaghetti for dinner. So we actually eat really, really well. As long as the propane doesn't run out and we don't run out of water, we actually eat pretty well.
Nice. So kind of like camping. You just got to bring what you're going to eat.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Sarah's wondering, how far in advance do you know your travel schedule and your hunt for bones when you go in the field?
Yeah, good question. So we plan it out in March, but our field season goes from about March until October. So like I said, my last dig was 2 weeks ago, and it was 27 degrees when we were airlifting those fossils out. So maybe we should have quit a little sooner. And then we go out for our University of Utah spring break. And so that's in the second week of March. So we know about when to go. The best times to dig here in Utah are May, July, August, and September. We skip April and June because the bug gnats are so bad, and they just get in your ears and get in your eyes, and they're just so annoying. And if we do go out, we have to wear these gnat hats and we look like beekeepers, and it's just good months to avoid. So we know pretty much when we're going, and then there are 3 paleontologists of us on staff, and so we kind of rotate who goes on what dig. We know pretty much in March who's going to go on what.
Nice. So you do plan quite a bit in advance to figure out who's going to be where. All right, Caitlin, a first grader wants to know, what was the first dinosaur?
First dinosaur, that's a good question. So, excuse me. So there are 3 different time periods where dinosaurs lived, right? The Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. Usually the Jurassic and the Cretaceous are the ones that people usually talk about because of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And then the Cretaceous had like T-Rex and Triceratops, so a lot of our favorite dinosaurs. But not a lot of people talk about the Triassic. And that was around 212 million years ago. And so there weren't T-Rexes, there weren't Triceratops, there weren't even the long neck, long tail guys. There were smaller dinosaurs like Coelophysis is one of those tiny dinosaurs, Dromaeosaurus, a lot of ones that you've not heard of before because they were small and they were kind of living in the shadow of these large, scary crocodile-looking animals. It wasn't until the Jurassic where they got really, really big and impressive.
Nice. So there's a whole group that was probably the first group. The actual individual first dinosaur, I'm going to guess, is impossible to define.
Yeah, one of them in the Triassic.
Yeah. Elijah wants to know if you've ever put together a whole dinosaur.
Oh, I love that question. Well, no. And the answer is because usually the finger bones or the tip of the tail are, they usually roll away. And so even you might have an absolutely perfect dinosaur that has like 200 bones in it, and it dies and it gets buried really relatively quickly. Even then, in the best circumstances, you'll probably be missing at least the end of the tail or some of the tip of the toes because they roll away. But we've gotten close.
And where are most bones found? Where have the most bones been found?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, in North America, they're found in the West. Because if you were to look at a map of North America during the time of the dinosaurs, there was a big ocean in the middle. So where like Nebraska and Kansas is, and so there are no dinosaurs in that area. And then in the East Coast, beyond those states, like in Illinois and Wisconsin, for example, they had the Ice Age, and so all of the glaciers came down from Canada and moved south, and as they went, they bulldozed all of the appropriate aged rocks away. And so like if you were to live in Illinois like we all did, there would be very, very old rocks that of like Cambrian and Ordovician and very way before the dinosaurs, and there'd be like corals and all sorts of stuff, and then mammoths, and you're missing the entire chunk of sediment that had dinosaur bones in it. Unfortunately, that's why you have to go west to dig up dinosaur bones. And so in North America, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Mexico, Colorado, all those places are really, really good places for dinosaurs. Now, there are a lot of really great fossiliferous places all over the world. Some of them that come to mind are Germany. They have a lot of really cool bones there. China, Mongolia. I'd love to dig dinosaur bones in Mongolia. There are bones found on every continent, even Antarctica.
Wow, that is amazing. And I think that's why Mrs. Levitt Bussian lives in Utah.
Yep. I went where the dinosaurs were.
Yep. So I can answer the next question. It's actually 2 people wrote the same question. Caitlin's one of them, a first grader. Where is the crater from the meteor that caused the dinosaurs to be extinct? This is one area where astronomy and paleontology combine, because we know that crater. It's called the Chicxulub crater, and it is in Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula. And there is a lot of evidence in the rocks and in the surrounding area that 65 million years ago, there was a gigantic explosion, and it matches up with the extinction of the dinosaurs. So the answer is Mexico. And can intermediate grades read the book? And Maureen, I would say yes, you can always give it a try. I mean, if you're really interested in dinosaurs, you could probably read levels above where you're at if you're that interested in it. So I would say go for it. Is T-Rex deadlier than Gigantosaurus? That one I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard to tell. They both are scary in their own ways and have sharp pointy teeth. I don't know. I always like those, trying to think about like who would win in a battle. Like I always think that Allosaurus doesn't get enough street cred because it was just as cool as T-Rex, but lived 100 million years before and was slightly smaller. So I don't know. I don't know who would win. I always like to think T-Rex will win everything, but it might not.
Wow. So there are so many questions flying in. Where did you find the dinosaur fossils you showed us? I think that's a quick one too. It's all from the US West, right? Where you do your field work?
Yeah, so both the ones that I showed, all the ones that I showed you, we found in Utah. And so we dig in this awesome place called Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. And it's about 6 hours south of Salt Lake City. And it's a wonderful protected place that we're allowed to dig. And yeah, that's where we find most of our stuff.
Do you have any prehistoric marine reptile bones in your collection?
Oh yeah, I love that question. Yes, we have ichthyosaurs, which kind of look like dolphins, but instead of their tails going up and down, they went side to side, kind of like a shark. We actually go to Nevada and we dig those out, and they're incredible. They're the size of whales. They're like the size of school buses, and but they're in Nevada, and of course there's not an ocean there anymore, so that shows you that there was an ocean there and there's not anymore. Yeah, we have yeah, ichthyosaurs are our main one that we have. Yeah.
And when you're out prospecting, I think is what this question means. How long do you have to walk?
Oh, good question. Well, we walk until we find something, right? So sometimes, like when we're in Grand Staircase, there are fossils everywhere. And so we only walk a couple feet and then we sit down with our GPS unit and take notes on what we find. Sometimes you got to walk for a very long time. Sometimes it's hard because it's really, really hot. And so we're trying to find shade, but there's not a whole lot of trees out there. And so you're trying to go from one shade tree to another shade tree to avoid the heat. So it depends.
And is Sue at the Field Museum complete or missing her fingers too? Actually, I don't know that she's still at the Field Museum.
He is.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So they moved her upstairs though. So yes, if you get an opportunity to go to the Field Museum, Sue, the most complete, largest Tyrannosaurus Rex ever found, is in Illinois. So definitely go and see it. It's very cool. She was in the main level lobby, but now she's upstairs in the Evolving Planet gallery, and she's got her whole room to herself. So it's very, very cool. I don't think she's complete. I think she's missing something. She's definitely missing the tip of her tail for sure. But definitely, if you have opportunity to go to the Field Museum, the Evolving Planet exhibit is permanent there, and it is it's included with your ticket.
I agree. That's something not to miss in your lifetime for sure. And last question, which dinosaur eats the most?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would think it'd be one of those sauropods, the long neck and long tail guys. They were huge. I mean, they were the size of 2 school buses, and they probably had a gigantic gut. And if they were like cows, right? And so you always see the big herbivores just eating food constantly, eating the green leaves constantly. And they needed to do that in order to get big. And that was their only defense mechanism, was to get as big as they could, as fast as they could. So they actually grew faster than the T-Rexes that ate them. But they probably ate the most. I don't even know how to calculate how much plant matter they would actually eat. But they would definitely be eating all day.
I imagine that's a lot of creature to sustain for sure. All right, so we are at 6:55, and I want to hand this back to Mrs. McMullen to do our wrap up here. And I, once again, loved Mrs. Levitt Bussian's wonderful presentation. and I learn something every single time I listen to you. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. That was just so good. And just an inspiration, right? That you're right here from U46, and the pathway to get kids everywhere, right, is right here. There were some questions from parents about books. If parents, okay, if parents will email me, I put my email in there, I'd be happy to do some research. One author, an award-winning author that writes scientifically accurate, is Melissa Stewart, that I can recommend right away. She has a ton of topics on dinos and other kinds of animals. And so you might want to check that out. But as far as like on being a paleontologist, I'm struggling finding anything, but I'll do some more research on that. But otherwise, that was great. Thank you so much. I want to make people aware of a couple things that we have going on next week. One, on November 14th, we're having our first Planetarium public show in quite a while. So we hope to see you guys there. The second thing I want to make everybody aware of is that the 16th then is our last kickoff, and related to dinosaurs, you're going to be learning from a herpetologist, and so kind of modern day dinosaurs. Is that right? I don't know. That's probably not even the right wording, but yeah, I know. I see you. That's great. Thanks everyone for your grace for my granddaughter troubles today. And thank you again, Carrie, for being here with us. We really appreciate it. So, all right. And dinos. Yep, that was fun. Thank you, everyone.
And bones.
And bones. There
And
are
bones.
bones. Okay.
And dinosaurs.
And dinosaurs.
bones.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. We hope to see you next week. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Okay, we're going to end it here.